Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, please. Sir. We'll call the meeting to order. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes that we all received.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a staff report on recent council meetings and developments. Mr. Hardison will give the update.
Thank you, Chair. We issued 69 permits since we met in May. 14 additionally were for new construction units, and we finalized 9 homes. 2 permits for demolition were applied for. One was the 406 Ocean Boulevard. I believe they want to come out with a single-family home. The other one was 501 Greenville, where that ranch-style home sat on 2 lots, and they're looking to subdivide that property and build on each lot. Just the New Hanover County Keep America Beautiful. The Bebot was out on the beach, I believe it was today. They got a permit to operate after holidays and also any events that are occurring on the beach. So that was the Beach Music Festival this past weekend, so they were cleaning up after that. The next one will be after July 4th. Couple of new businesses, Leaf and Love, which is beside Uncle Vinny's, another little restaurant, and also Case's Laundry. It's formerly Melissa's Laundry. And just a couple of just updates. The special council meeting for the Carolina Beach Yacht Club for additional boat slips was postponed by the applicant, and that was because he was doing some site modifications. And that's will be determined when that meeting will be scheduled. For planning and zoning, we had a application in for accessory structures. There was actually 3 items that they were looking to amend. One was the height of accessory structure, the size, and how many. So that we'll be hearing that next month. And of course, our ongoing discussion with the UDO update.
Did the laundry, did that change ownership, or are they just leasing it?
It's under different ownership.
Oh, okay.
And now,
We
any
know-
questions you have?
Anybody have questions for staff? Do we have, did anyone sign up for public comment?
Oh, and just watch it as the rezoning for Harper Avenue did pass by town council Tuesday night.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, we're open to hearing public comment. If you have some comment, just in general, you can address us now, or you can speak at the particular hearing that you're interested in speaking to. Anyone at this time? Last chance, okay. Next, we'll hear a text amendment to amend Article 3, Section 3.20 fence regulations. The applicant is Pleasure Island Holdings, LLC, and Ms. Anderson will make the presentation.
Hello, everybody. So I'll be talking to you about a proposed text amendment to create an exception for commercial pool fencing that's located within a front setback. So that'll amend Article 3, Section 3.2, which is our fence regulations. So I will get into that. The applicant, Pleasure Island Holdings, LLC. The reason for the proposed text amendment per their application is they would like to allow some flexibility for fencing that's located within a front setback for commercial pools. Our town ordinance requires fencing within the front setback be no taller than 48 inches tall or 4 feet. North Carolina Building Code requires fencing be at least 48 inches, so that's a very hard line of 4 feet or 48 inches exactly that applicants have to get to for meeting pool code and town code, and that's created some issues in the past. So it can be difficult to find and install fencing that's prefabricated fencing built for commercial pool standards, sold commercially. Sometimes they sell 48-inch sections, but that doesn't account for those sections being lifted off the ground a little bit for installation. So this would hopefully be addressing kind of some of those issues to make it a little more flexible. As an example, here is a pool that has fencing located in a front setback. As you can see, this is an older picture that was taken. This was the original fencing that met the 4-foot tall kind of requirements, chain link fencing. And then this is an example of one that had gone through a variance, so they were able to allow just a few more inches to the 48. And this is the type of pool barrier that they currently have. So this is an example of some of the pools that might take advantage of replacing their fencing through this text amendment. So the proposed text amendment, it provides an exception to the 4-foot fence height requirements for fencing located within a front setback. It allows, so number 2, we just switched the location essentially of what that sentence was saying to match previous locations, or to match how everything flowed in other sentences. So there was no change to number 2 technically, except for relocating. Number 3 is the meat and potatoes of this, where we're allowing for commercial pools located within a front setback to meet, to not exceed 5 feet in height, specifically just for commercial pools located in a front setback. And then we also didn't want to create any, since it is in a front setback, we didn't want to create any issues with sight distance triangles, so we're requiring a minimum opacity of 50% so that it's a see-through barrier. The town ordinance and existing nonconformities. Currently, we restrict all pools from being located within a front setback of the zoning district. So these are currently legal nonconforming pools that were built 40s, 50s, 60s, before we had our zoning districts established. So that's why we have existing nonconforming pools in front setbacks. So right now, there's a total of 8 nonconforming commercial pools that are currently located. Their fencing would be located within that front setback. So the problem occurs when these non-conforming commercial pools update their fence barrier. And like we said before, the prefabricated fences with how they need to be installed on top of the barrier can make it just a little bit over 48 inches usually. So creating some flexibility so we're not having as many things come to Board of Adjustment to get variances and not having as many issues with people trying to figure out what types of fencing they can put around these pools. In terms of the land use plan, it's in general conformity with the land use plan. As we know, our LUP encourages the improvement and renovation of existing structures, so that would include existing pools that have been here for a while. It also allows exploring options to allow older structures to reinvent themselves within the limits of public safety. So updating these pool barriers also falls under them being able to update and keep up with public safety, even at maybe a little bit of higher regulation than what North Carolina Building Code would require, and allows them to install something that looks nice. In terms of staff comments, we're in general support of the proposed text amendment. There's a limited number of these non-conforming commercial pools. There's only 8 of them. And it allows flexibility so that we don't have to measure the exact 48 inches to meet our town requirement, and then they're not also fighting to meet building code requirement. So it just makes it easier for all parties. So your options, you can approve the applicant's text amendment, you can modify it at your discretion, or deny the proposed text amendment. Do you guys have any questions for staff?
I have one. And hearing the Board of Adjustment thing, I think if I recall, they were only like a 1.5 inches or 2 inches over the height.
Yeah, I think there were just a few.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
No.
I agree this is the better venue for that. What is the rationale behind going up to 5 feet?
When we kind of discussed at staff level, to be fair, the applicant only asked for 54, 56. When we discussed at staff level, keeping it the round whole number instead of measuring by inches seemed a little bit better, and it provided more flexibility, especially since you're still keeping the opacity for being able to see and not creating that hazard. It just seemed like that was the easier option, but obviously that is up to you all. If you guys would like to reduce that down, perfectly fine, at your discretion.
What was their actual height with that little base that was added for this applicant?
The applicant might be able to better.
Okay, I'll ask.
Yeah, I don't remember the
Okay.
exact number on that one.
Okay. Anybody else?
That was my question too.
Yeah,
Like, why'd we go from 4 to 5
Yeah.
instead of 4?
I had a quick question about the opacity requirement. And you may have done the research on this, I hope so. Is there any potential for that to be in conflict with the building code requirements? Because I know pools have very strict size of, opening sizes and stuff that they have to follow.
It shouldn't. So it really depends on the bars and how far apart to be able to create the foothold.
Yeah,
I don't believe the 50% opacity goes against that, since you can like create the bars. I don't think it would
okay.
have that effect.
I just didn't want that to be like an unintended,
No,
like
yeah.
by requiring
That's a good
50%
question.
opacity or prefabricated
I believe the current, like,
pool
the wrought
fences,
iron-
like not.
Yeah, I believe the current wrought iron fencing that they have out there is even less. It's more visibility
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Well, that would.
than 50%.
Yeah.
So you can see way clearly through that. So yeah,
I just didn't want to make an unintended consequence.
fair enough.
Anybody else for her? Okay, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Would the applicant like to present?
Good evening. Lad Gasparovic. I am I'm one of the partners in the Pleasure Island Holdings that owns the Dry Dock Inn. This will be my third time appearing. My third time. I'm also legal counsel. It'll be my third time practicing law in the last 15 years. I'm a business owner and a real estate guy. I only practice law when I need to come in here and represent Dry Dock. So maybe a little bit rusty, but I am a licensed attorney. So there's not a whole lot that I can say. I think that Haley really described it really well. What we did get a variance. Embarrassingly, we've been here twice before, and the challenge is these fences are prefabricated, and you have these. We have a pool safety code that says you have to be at least this high, and then we have a town code that says you can't be any more than this high. It doesn't really give you any wiggle room. We're okay with any height that the board deems fit. I believe that we were about.
About 52, is that correct?
The front fence that's already in was a 54-inch fence. And I will tell you, if you talk to people in the pool industry, they'll tell you, I don't know if you can pull up that picture, the one that you had. They will tell you that the 54-inch fences are much safer because they have the second row. They have another crossbar across the top. So that fence on the bottom is much more sturdy. And pool contractors, the gentlemen that install fences around pools, especially commercial pools, they would not want to put a 48-inch in because they're a lot more bendy. So I would say if you do, I would suggest that it would make sense to make it something a little bit above 54 that would give you enough wiggle room. So what happens if you have a 54-inch fence, it's prefab like that, and then you have to have these risers that they go on. And so basically you put a riser underneath that you drill into the concrete because you can't, if you're putting that fence in a yard, then you just would dig down and you could get it to be exactly 54 inches. So I would
Those risers are about 2 inches.
I think they were about 2 inches off the top of my head, but I'm not exactly sure. But we did not ask for 60. I do think this is the appropriate venue, and I appreciate Haley's help and staff's help. They sort of suggested this because we were never trying to really get around anything. We were doing our best, and we had an employee that just sort of got a little bit confused. And we were confused the first time. The second time we knew, it's just that the fence contractor couldn't get it exactly without jackhammering the whole deck that's been in there, and that's a whole nother issue. So any questions you guys have, I'm happy to answer them. I think it will be a very good common sense edit to the the current law or the current regulations, and I think it's very narrow. It only applies to 8. In our case, I think what we've replaced it with is much safer, and I think it looks a lot better, and we haven't obstructed anything. And of course, we weren't ever trying to do anything inappropriate or wrong. So I think it solves a problem and doesn't really create any other issue. So if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
I think what I just heard is that whereas 54 might cover it, 56 would definitely cover it?
I think I could probably get, if you want me, I can probably text the contractor and find out the exact, I would say 54, I would say 56 might cut it a little close, but I think it would be somewhere around, if you were going to do 56, I would suggest 57, just because I think the riser is 2 inches, but I'm not exactly sure.
So the answer would probably be more likely 58 or 60,
Yeah.
5 feet. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Would anyone else, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on the matter? Questions for him? Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, guys, what do you think? Mr. Carew, you can go first.
I would favor anything that we could do that's lower than 5 feet, but it sort of sounds to me like we'd be saying 58 inches if that were the case. And maybe that makes the best sense. I mean, if there's not a reason to go to 60, then maybe 58.
I think I'd lean on Haley, because you've been out there how many times? A lot?
Definitely a few.
Yeah.
I mean, if 58 would cover it, I feel like that could be perfectly fine. 60 inches would definitely cover it, so I feel like it creates the wiggle room that we might need for situations, just in case. But I'll leave that to the discretion of y'all's discussion.
Okay.
It's 8 total properties. I don't know that we.
Yeah. Todd?
So, I'm going to interject a little experience here.
Come on.
I'm going to interject a little experience here. So building code regulation requires the latch to be at 54 inches. So your fence panels are going to come industry standard 54 inches plus the riser on the bottom, 52, 54. The area at the bottom can't exceed a 4-inch sphere, like under the concrete. The idea is a baby can crawl through something like that. So unless one of the other 7 property chooses to go and have a custom-made fence, you're going to be in the realm of a standardized fence, which is, out of a catalog, 99% of it looks like this. They have to meet certain criteria, and those criteria, they can't be horizontal. You can't climb it like a ladder. It's got to be narrow enough that something, a small child can't get through, and it can't be far enough off the ground that they can't go under. So 54, 60 sounds fine with me, because the problem is, if this concrete is settled, you want to keep the top rail level, and you could unintentionally have a corner that's 59 inches, just because you're trying to keep the fence itself level. So I think I'm good with 60 inches. I don't see a big difference between 60 and 58. 5 feet and 58 inches.
Thank you. Lynn?
I agree with my fellow commissioners, 60 inches is fine. I think, obviously, the upgrade and the appearance is wonderful, so, and I think it's safe, and I'm good, 60 inches.
Mr. Crouch?
Yeah, I agree with the other commissioners. We're dealing with front setback issue, and the idea being you don't want to create a problem with line of sight. And the opacity, I think, is really a bigger issue than 1 or 2 inches off the top, So I think the 60 inches is fine. The opacity gives us the line of sight we need to safely navigate the corners, so I think it's a great adjustment.
Okay. Melanie?
I agree with our fellow commissioners, and I'm going to take Commissioner Piper's take on it, because he does this, he knows, and his expertise on the matter, and I'm going to say 60 is okay with me.
Mr. Hogan?
I have nothing to add. I agree with the fellow commissioners, so.
I agree, but also, I think we're all on the same, and I'm fine with the 5 feet. I just had the question. Maybe it prevents us from having to have another series of meetings if, because of Todd's point, you got concrete in one area that's lower. Obviously, that can happen. Anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the commission, whereas in accordance with the provisions of the North Carolina General Statutes, does hereby find and determine that the adoption of the following text amendment for Article 3, Section 3.20 fence regulations is consistent with the goals and objectives of the adopted land use plan and other long-range plans.
You have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, sir. Did a nice job with that hotel, by the way, motel. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm making some notes here. Okay, next we'll hear a text amendment to amend Article 3 zoning and Article 7 definitions of the UDO to address water-oriented businesses and personal watercraft sales and rental. The applicant is the town of Carolina Beach, and Ms. Abbott's will make the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. I know we're all very familiar with this one. So this is a text amendment to address water-oriented businesses. So I'm just going to go through the items that were changed at P&Z's request. So we removed boats from the automotive category. That was from our very first iteration of this text amendment. Boats and personal watercraft rental requires a conditional zoning. Boat sales and repair are permitted by right with standards. And we clarified that retail definition, which to include repair. Boat taxis permitted by right only in the CBD, and water-oriented uses, businesses with a capacity of less than 15 people are allowed in the CBD and the marina business. And then a capacity of 15 people or more is only allowed in the CBD. So moving to the parking, again, remove boats from that automotive category. Boat rentals is 1.5 spaces per boat. The marina definition, or excuse me, the marina parking is staying the same, 1 space per wet slip. Dry stack will be changed to 1 per 2 storage spaces. And those water-oriented businesses with less than 15 capacity will require 1 parking space.
Back up one time,
Sure.
please. Sorry to get you off your game.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, thank you.
And so then these specific standards were added. They were, they were silent before about boat rentals. So they do need to operate in a on-site building, show all those boat slips on the site plan, and other consistent standards with our automotive category. And then we added standards for commercial marinas, just saying that they need to have facilities for restrooms, refuse, electricity, pump outs, things like that. And then moving to the definitions. So that automotive definition, we made it clear that rental of any sort of vehicle is not included. And then we added a definition of public marina, which would be our town marina. Added that definition of wet boat slip for the purposes of parking. So it is including any watercraft over water for any purpose, including transient. And then a definition of boat taxi. And then that rental definition for boats states that they can be rented from a marina, dry stack, or dry storage. And then we added that water-oriented uses definition back in with commercial boats operating in a public or commercial marina. So this text amendment is in general conformity with our land use plan. The waterfront and marinas are very major drivers to our town's economy, and the plan does recommend preserving those uses. I have the motion, and I can take any questions.
There was 2 things we discussed with, in our meetings, and I'm not sure, when I see the motion, there were 2 other pieces that we mentioned. One was, and do we make those as part of the recommendation to council? One was rezoning one half of the town marina, because for the public that might not know, the marina is zoned in two different zoning districts. Over time, that just occurred. So would that be part of this? And secondly, we spoke to, I think we were pretty much unanimous in our informal conversations in regards to making St. Joseph Street undesignated parking. I think I'm getting that terminology right.
Yes, sir. So you could include that as part of your recommendation, but both of those would be a separate process from this text amendment tonight.
Right, but our process is going, I just want to make sure council gets the full
Yeah.
scope, because almost all of this is driven by parking. Almost all of it's driven by parking, and I think it's important to have the whole piece so they could maybe understand our rationale
Sure.
for the whole.
I think it would be appropriate to have, a sentence stating that in the motion.
Okay.
And I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
And so, just so we get it clarified to start off with, so we're all on the same page. Let's just say I own a commercial marina, and I want to rent boats myself, or rent slips to a company that rents boats. Can you tell us the process, including the parking requirements and the plans that I would need?
Sure. So that applicant would hopefully come and talk to us before they start their business, and it would require a conditional zoning, much like a bunch of projects we've seen in front of this board. It would go to our TRC first, and then come to P&Z for a recommendation and ultimate approval by town council. So they would have to submit a site plan that shows all the slips that they will be using for that business, and including the parking spaces, which would be 1.5 spaces per boat.
Okay. And what about the office space and the restroom facilities?
If it's an existing marina, that would hopefully be captured, but we would look at the marina as a whole to make sure they have all the parking spaces for all the required or relevant uses that they have in that marina.
Okay. And so are there any circumstances that would allow a commercial marina to have boat rentals without conditional zoning approval in the 1.5?
Based
Personal
on this, if this text amendment passes, no, but if there is an existing business, they would be allowed to continue to operate.
At their current levels.
Yes.
Unless they change
Unless they changed what they, so if they weren't currently renting boats,
Mhm.
and if a current marina decided they wanted to rent boats, they would have to come before the conditional zoning process,
Yes.
correct? Okay, I just want to make sure we have
Of course.
all of those requirements in set.
Mhm.
And can I camp onto what Commissioner Boswell said? Underneath commercial marina, and I know we don't like redundancy, but I also hate ambiguity. So is it possible we could put a parenthetical statement along the lines of, if applicable, see rental requirements above, or see boat rental requirements above, so that it is inherent in there. Somebody just doesn't look at commercial marina and never look at boat rentals.
Mhm. Is that in the?
In the table of 324.
On table 3.6.
3.24?
Oh, yeah. But then the table right up in there.
Yes.
Okay. It does say required for all other on-site uses.
So that's not what we got, though. I'm not looking at that one.
Can we,
What page you on?
I'm on
we're on
page
this, where the table she's got up.
23. Copy this. So you're in the standards. I am in the standards.
Oh, okay.
I just think as many places as we can put it that clarify what the expectations are with regards to parking.
In,
So I have that on my notes too, Lynn,
Okay.
where the commercial
It doesn't say.
marina, and it should have, the boat rental should be part of the requirements.
Right.
This is just my notes.
It's at the top of the page. On this.
Top of
On
page.
the one that you made, the pretty one with.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, so that's the parking requirement at the top of page 6. So would you want it in the parking or in the use standards on page 5?
I think as many places as we can clarify
Okay.
is better. So I think we definitely need it in 324. If you want to put it in 362, that's fine. I just think we need to link the two pieces together. Rentals, commercial, marina, and the 1.5 requirement.
Yeah, because it's on one and not the other.
Okay.
Can you go back to that table,
Sure.
table?
The parking or the
six,
use table?
off-street parking.
Okay.
please.
Oop, wrong way.
Okay, see under commercial marina here,
Mm-hmm.
and the parking requirements, boat rentals should be part of those requirements.
Okay. So after where it says required for all other on-site uses, including boat rentals or something like that?
Yeah, so we had, what we talked about it before, boat rentals, right after the 1 per 2 dry dock storage facilities. Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the primary usage for marinas, commercial marinas?
Is
Is it leasing a slip or is it rentals?
it's for the slips.
So on that one, right after the service bay, I guess, I think that's where we had it before, for boat rentals, to put the 1.5.
Even if we have it as a
I-
that table?
Yeah,
It needs to be in both places, and I just don't think I don't think it's intuitive.
Okay. I think we can make that change.
yeah, see, we have dry dock storage, it has its own as well, and it's in the commercial marina, so that's, we should put the, boat rentals in there too, if everybody agrees. I thought we had put it before.
Any other questions for me?
I think the definitions for both commercial and private were very nicely done, so thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I've got one on page 24 in the packet. At the end of 3.24, water, where we said water-oriented uses, did we mean water-oriented businesses there?
Oh, sorry, I just missed that one.
Is this in the text? I don't have the packet in front of me, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's in 3.24, the table at the very end. It spans a page.
The very last column, if you go back to the table.
Here.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it should match. So that's just a typo that I can fix. Water-oriented businesses. Yeah, it
Right.
should match the table. Thank you.
Don't go far, we're going to open a public hearing and probably
Okay.
continue here. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak on this matter?
Good evening. I'm Olin Furr, I live at 440 Oceana Way. I just wanted to thank each one of you individually, appreciate all the hard work you've done, and I know this is a volunteer job, and I know you care about the community, and Thank you for the time and everything you've done and what you've talked about tonight and mentioned and the changes you made. If you get all that in the package, you will have done an excellent job of securing the neighborhoods and helping to solve some of the parking issues that we have here in town, and hopefully for future development too. So thank you so much for all that you've done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're not
Might be
accustomed,
the-
we're
I
not
was like, I've been
accustomed.
on there a long time. This might be the first time we've ever been thanked, so thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the matter? Okay. Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Gloria, you should probably stand back up there. The only thing I will say, I think, for me, I usually don't go first. I'm fine with all, we've just met, the public might not know this, we have met on this for many hours, on multiple occasions, trying to get it right. I would just say if we make a motion, we include, I think Lynn and Melanie did a good job on trying to make sure everything is intuitive and understood and right. If there's any more changes, let's take all the time we need. But if not, I would just encourage you guys, when the motion is made, to vote for it with the recommendations of the undesignated parking for the entirety of St. Joseph Street, and also to rezone the marina. So they may approach it in two different, rezone the marina. And again, for the public that may not know, the marina is split into two different zoning districts. Unintended, it was just a function of growth that occurred. But I think it would be important, since some of this table deals with certain businesses that have to be in the CBD. I don't think we do one without doing the other. So that's my only input on it. I think we've talked it through and through a lot.
Mr. Chair, I have just, of course, a couple hyphens, water-oriented and marine-related. I just want to make sure they go on the record as being hyphenated words. I think Mr. Carew had brought up, Commissioner Carew had brought up some concerns earlier, and I thought we should probably address those as well.
Bill?
Yeah, after doing a little looking, I think we overdid it on the dry stack parking requirement. We took it to 1 to 2 from 1 to 5. And I think after having looked at the situation that I think Jeff had pointed out to us, Commissioner had pointed out to us in the last meeting, that the problem isn't really the ratio, but just simply the availability of parking in that particular installation. So I'd say it's more of an enforcement thing than it necessarily is a change the ratio thing. I think going back to 1.5 would make sense. Let's make sure they have the required parking, and we enforce that moving forward. And I looked, I think Wrightsville's at 1 to 6, and I'm sure that's, more in the zone for other communities comparably to, folks in our area.
Todd?
So, I'd like to thank Mr. Carew, because you did do a lot of research. And the question I had for anybody at home, Mr. Carew brought up aerial photos of certain areas where they do rent boats in town, and my question would be to staff, can there anything be incorporated into this bill to make enforcement easier? Because it almost looked like some areas, and I'm not gonna name the areas, but it almost looked like areas that were utilized that were supposed to have parking has become more like, let's call it an
Storage.
auto shop. Like, put your boat over there and we'll get to it next week. Oh, we need to pick somebody up, put it up over there. So it got me thinking, is there a better way? Do the parking blocks need to be numbered? I mean, I feel like it should be easy for staff to walk out there and say, okay, there's 30 parking spaces, here's 30 numbered parking blocks. I don't feel that the towns, the residents' tax dollars should have to go out there, and staff's trying to figure out what is parking, what isn't parking. So I'm kind of posing that to staff, but I'm piggybacking on Mr. Carew. I hate to add onus of work to staff. I mean, we should make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, but that is part of the responsibility of staff, is to make sure that these establishments are being compliant with the ordinance. So we can definitely take that on, and we have made, we've had conversations with an operator on providing that parking and making sure that it is open to the public. They understand, and they do want to make that available, and they're working on making those modifications.
So does that, do they have a site plan with numbered parking? I mean, they have a site plan with numbered?
Yeah, they have an approved plan
Are
that
the
shows,
spaces
here's the
numbered?
number of spaces that you should have, and they should be,
Lined and numbered at that location?
they are, or were delineated. I'd have to go back and see if, make sure they were, but at the time when they opened, they were delineated. Not necessarily paved and lined, but they were, had a wheel stop, and it showed that, yes, this is a parking space.
Okay.
I think from what Bill Carew sent us, it's maybe in the one area that you had the picture of, I think it probably had it, and then it morphed into storage for something else, and therefore the parking kind of wasn't available. Is that kind of the way, that's what I took from your picture.
That would be the appearance to me, yeah, to some extent. I'm not sure if there was sufficient parking that was delineated with wheel stops or not, but certainly some of it appears to have been consumed with other pursuits.
And
Storage.
So that goes to my point, if we have on-site parking, I mean, that there have to be designated wheel stops. I mean,
Yes, yeah, that space should
already
be
in the code.
delineated, so the public is clearly, that they know that, yes, this is a parking space.
That's already a requirement, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think to Bill's point, it's, a lot of it would be enforcement. Therefore, so how do you feel about what Bill said?
What is he saying? Are you saying to change on the dry stack storage facilities where it was 1 per 5, and now we have 1 per 2?
And I would
No.
be in favor of taking it back to one to 5, under the assumption that we're actually going to get those parking spaces in those locations.
Yeah, I don't know, because we talked about like the possibility of where another marina could be put. And like for the future plan of it, I'm open to hearing, I just,
So you think if there's 50 boats in a dry stack, your logic is that
only 10 cars?
only 10 would go out on a weekend?
Yeah.
I'm just asking, because I'm just trying to,
Yeah, no, I get
I'm
what you're
not
saying.
trying to
Right.
cut at you, I'm just.
So what I saw there, in terms of the facility, there were about approximately 104 dry stacks. There were approximately 33 boats that are just floating around on trailers, and about 12 trailers. And if you added all those up, I don't know exactly how we enumerate that, but if you added all those up, you'd get to a need at 1 to 5 for about 30 parking spaces. I could only see, based on the wheel stops and lines, about 4 parking spaces that were in that lot, and nobody was using them. They had 4 cars parked out in the ROW on St. Joe's. That was noontime on a Wednesday, so I'm sure that's not a peak time. But what I saw was that even if you had a peak time on the weekend, and you saw a line of cars on St. Joe's, if you saw 30 cars, those 30 cars should be in that lot, approximately, depending on how it's enumerated.
Ethan?
We've talked about these ratios and table numbers so many times, and changed it so many times. I don't know. I think this is like the 5th time we've changed them. So I'm amicable to whatever the board agrees to in regards to these ratios. I think the intent's there. I think we've done the best we can. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. That'll likely be amended again in the future. So I think we've done the best we can for right now. If you guys want to make further changes, I'm not going to, I'll support whatever the commission decides.
Lynn?
Ditto to everything that Commissioner Couch just said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I saw the pictures. I don't know that us changing it from 1 to 5 to 1 to 2 is gonna make a difference for the picture we saw today. I don't know that they would change a thing. So, to your point, it's an enforcement issue, it's not an ordinance issue. And I don't think we can fix that.
Well, it's not in our mission. It's not in our mission. Jeff?
I don't know, we were so ready to make it 1 to 2. I'm just not sure that I'm ready to go back to 1 to 5. I'm not sure I wouldn't be happy with 3 or 4, but some change.
Got a suggestion? You? Sir?
I would be happy with 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 at the most. But I think 1 to 5, I just think on the weekends, I just live near it and I know that more than 10% are going out on their boat, or 20%. So it's just my.
Todd?
So, I agree with, I think it's an enforcement issue more than anything, but I think if you do see any more, or not, when we do see additional marinas come to town, they're gonna bring a proposal to us, and they're probably gonna ask for less strict
Relief.
parking. But I think at that point, that's where maybe we try and fine tune the parking requirements. I understand the difficulty now with staff trying to, get parking where it was delineated, it's not being used now. But I think if someone brought a proposal to you, it would look like there's some other marinas in town that are much better delineated. I guess Federal Point, paved, it's marked, it's super nice and neat, and it gets used properly. Like, people don't park, they don't park on the grass. I think the areas where we're seeing now, I think are just, there's a couple bad actors. And so, I don't wanna hold everyone hostage, but any marina that is gonna come here they're gonna bring slight changes they wanna see to us anyway. So I'm gonna stick with 1 to 2, spent a lot of time on this, and I'm gonna hold the line there.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
I mean, we spent how many hours going over and going through, and we discussed it, and we went from 5 to 2, we talked other numbers. I'm more comfortable with sticking the 1 to 2. I'm looking for 10 years from now. And the ones that are already there are already grandfathered in unless they change uses, so I would rather stick with the 1 to 2 and let any future commercial marina business owners come to us at that time if
With
they
the
want
text
to
amendment.
change. Yeah.
Okay. I think we know, is there anyone want to say anything else? Otherwise, we'll see if anybody wants to make a motion.
Are you okay?
Make it bigger.
No, he's mad at you, Jeff.
He's always mad at me, it's all right. All right, I'll make a motion, whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission, whereas in accordance with the provisions of the North Carolina General Statutes, does hereby find and determine that the adoption of the following ordinance amendment to amend Article 3 zoning and Article 7 definitions of the UDO to address water-oriented businesses is consistent with the goals and objectives of the adopted land use plan and other long-range plans, with the added two stipulations that we recommend that St. Joseph Street is changed to undesignated parking in the right-of-way, and also recommend as a board that all of the town marina be rezoned to CBD, to Central Business District.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay.
That was a long time coming.
Do we have other items to start going through on the UDO?
Yeah, we can just give kind of a broad overview of what we've identified. We don't have to take a deep dive necessarily into those, but just kind of, some of it are very small changes. Some of it may be a little bit lot more discussion involved of, which direction we may want to go. But
Are these
Gloria-
things you'll be bringing to some of our meetings in pieces? We won't do it all together.
Correct,
that's-
yes. And get input as well from the commission on those. But yeah, Gloria can just kind of go over the topics.
That'd be great.
Oh. Me again. Um, so these are, I guess there's 10, a handful. Some of them could be combined or talked about into more detail, but this was kind of just to get brainstorming, get y'all thinking about everything. Some of them are a little bit more minor, like the first one, we just want to update our submittal section. So if we want to change a meeting, we don't have to come apply for a text amendment. And then our dimensional standards table, that shows all the setbacks and everything. It was incorrect for T1 and I1. They both have 80% maximum impervious. Number 3 is more of a discussion for potentially creating an allowance for double frontage driveways. Right now, they are limited to 36 feet at the front property line, so that can get a little tricky if there's multiple units on that double frontage property. Hotels, we want to make sure they know they have to provide parking even if they're in the CBD. And they can't use that golf cart exemption because most people going to a hotel probably will not be going on their golf cart.
I
And
probably didn't get there on the golf cart.
Probably not.
so we just want to make that really clear and also maybe start a discussion about if there should be other businesses that are not going to be able to use that 500-foot exemption in the CBD discussion.
The only thing I want to say about golf cart and hotels, just so you know, because I mean, in my Airbnb, honestly, I have people fly in, get an Uber down, and rent a golf cart for the week while
Really?
they are here.
Really?
Just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it
That's
doesn't
fair.
exist.
Well, their golf cart will
I'm
fit
just
in a
trying
normal
to,
space.
when something actually affects me, I try to point it out, because I think,
I would have thought that. I wouldn't have thought that.
no, but they do. They literally fly in, get an Uber down, and then rent a golf cart. So.
Yeah, and staff would just add to that,
And I
like,
wouldn't put it at a high percentage, but I would say there could be.
and we can definitely have that discussion. But also, when the original, the ordinance that allowed for a business not to provide parking within the CBD,
Right.
the CBD was a lot smaller. It has expanded, and maybe some of these parcels that are on maybe across Lake Park Boulevard or on the outskirts of the CBD, maybe look at, maybe they should be able to provide parking if they have the space. And I know, we definitely want to protect the downtown central, the boardwalk area. That's understandable, but, maybe not everyone should be able just to waive parking when they want to redevelop.
Well, even when like they did where Fork and Cork was and above, you still required parking for the.
For the residential, you
Residential
must,
above it
yes.
anyway, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
and as Gloria said, we want to make sure that, certain lodging uses has to provide parking.
I agree.
And that doesn't affect the existing businesses, just the ones like that will be developed, or if something is,
Yeah, and it
if
may be.
something happens to one of them that's currently there and needs to be reconstructed, then would it have to conform to this providing the parking?
No, not, that's not the intent. It's just, maybe more of those traditional parcels that weren't in the CBD, when they do get redeveloped or change uses, that, all right, maybe this parcel should provide parking. And it may be something we can just, draw on a map and look at and say, okay, this is a parking waiver district.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we could do, and I appreciate you guys bringing it up, and I think we'll have a long discussion about this, guys, so.
Yeah.
Can we
And
have like a
tonight
month or
won't be
two
the,
break?
tonight won't be the night to debate
Yeah.
it, so.
And-
Thanks for bringing
Yeah.
up the
Can
topic.
we do that one down the road?
Yeah,
Can we do some easy ones first?
yeah.
Like in the off-season?
Yeah, that's fine. Well,
That's an off-season number.
yeah, we can rank them if you want to do that.
I think we're just going to put
I'd rather see
Commissioner
that.
Conto on fix various typos. That'll just be a one-person job,
Yeah.
because Miss semicolon,
That's
colon,
why I-
period, capitalization, she will have it fixed in a day.
Yeah.
I would suggest, Gloria, with the season being upon us, any of these items, whichever ones that are likely to require some workshops, I'd prefer to see those like in the fall or winter.
Understood.
If it's not something that's urgent and we need to do it, I'd rather not have to have that many meetings like we did with this last thing we voted on. I
Yes,
think we
sir.
had 3, 4. I'd prefer not to do that during the season because I don't think we'll get as much participation because of the demands on everybody's business and et cetera.
Yeah, it's been a year, so we're having a little pulse check.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's good. We knew this was gonna happen.
Yes.
Yeah, it was expected.
So, getting into the next one, we did adopt some new language for that non-conforming section, and it's been a little confusing for staff, I'll just be honest, to, explain to people. So and this might just be like
What number
we
is this?
bulleted out. I'm on number 5.
Okay.
So maybe just discussing how we can clarify that section, and maybe the whole non-conforming section in general, but that's a different conversation. And then number 6 is pretty specific, but it goes with that non-conforming section. Maybe creating an allowance for staircases or access for some of these homes that are being elevated with our FEMA grants, because a lot of them are sometimes non-conforming for setbacks, and then when they're going in the air, they need access to their home. And then in accessory structures, this is not going to be a part of the discussion next month, but in a future discussion, kind of going through that section and looking at some of the exemptions and clarifying, what is an accessory structure, what counts for lot coverage, things like that. And then number 8, we do have where it's written that they will have to record a dedicated easement for those PUDs where they have a house behind the house. And I don't think that was our intention. We just wanted them to have a 12-foot driveway, so kind of easing up that restriction for, contractors. And then the setback exceptions for small lots, we've had 2 now at the Board of Adjustment where they want to have some setback exceptions. So maybe digging into that a little bit and figuring out what works for us. And then, of course, some typos. I already know who can help me. So yeah, this was just more to like brainstorm and start the discussion.
Yeah, on number 9, if I'm not mistaken, Jeremy, I discussed this with you. There are 41 or 44 properties that are less than 50 foot wide at the roadway in CB. Am I phrasing that correctly?
Yeah, I don't have that number on.
Yeah, I
but
think there's 41, I think
Yeah.
there's 41 or 44 that are less than 50 feet wide.
It's around there.
And there's 366 properties in town, other than those that are less than 5,000 square feet. So I believe that's, if you were asking, I would think that would be one of the earlier ones we would look at.
We can
Because
push that with number
that's 500, that's 407 properties, I believe, something like that.
Switch that to number 4.
if we're ranking them in order.
Yeah, I think that would be, because that's a lot of property. And you already, what we saw at the first, I don't know if, I just pay it, I always look for that number on the staff update. And on the new construction, from last month to this month was 15 new constructions. And that had gotten down to 5 and 6, and sometime there was just a few for a 2-month period. So we're going to see that, and I think it's probably something to get on sooner rather than later, are those non-conforming lots. I think it's important, and I think it's going to really, really help you guys out at staff level, being able to explain it to them, and I think it will prevent having multiple meetings. Because I know the Board of Adjustment heard recently a person that had I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was 25 feet wide by 100 and some, and they wanted the setbacks changed. And, you think about it, had Board of Adjustments gone through and granted that, then you potentially could have had 407 hearings for every one of those parcels. So Board of Adjustments didn't table it, said no, but there is that issue. And I can also share that I spoke with Jeremy about this. Curry Beach had this same issue, and I believe there are 14 lots in Curry Beach that fall under this thing. And for Curry Beach, it may be worthwhile, not that we want to do what they did, but to determine their logic. They came up with a formula. And for most people, may not know this, but Curry Beach has, for example, the side setbacks are 5 feet. In the Curry Beach, that formula, some of those really small lots were allowed to go down to as low as 3 from the property line, with everything else working in the formula. So it might be worthwhile to do it. But I think this is a big one for us to get involved in. If you notice, I think Board of Adjustments also heard one on Starfish. Was that the
Sailfish.
street? Sailfish?
Close.
And it was an old house, and they just simply wanted to knock it down and build back where it is. And of course, Board of Adjustments approved that. It's probably a huge increase, but on that particular street, I believe there are 8 or 9 properties that are also non-conforming. So if staff agrees, I think that's a priority item. It wouldn't be, it would be my number 1.
Yes.
Yeah. And number 11, actually, we're going to put on there, but that
sorry.
is, we'll have to advertise and have a public hearing, but it's going to be the rezoning for this marina, at the town marina for the CBD.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, at least they get everything as to why we were thinking that
Yeah.
about the rezoning. And, yeah. Is there a public hearing on the undesignated parking if they were to decide to do that on St. Joseph?
There would be, all of these things are in the zoning ordinance, so you
Uh-huh.
would be required to have a public hearing to make any changes.
Okay, okay. Good.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any non-agenda items?
I've got one. Question for staff, and just to help me understand where we've been, where we're going to with the text amendment that we just made. We used to have, well, we still have, water-oriented businesses that used to include boat rental and water taxi. We moved boat rental and water taxi out of water-oriented businesses. Water-oriented businesses used to be conditional zoning and is no longer conditional zoning, but we have boat rentals set now as conditional zoning. And the point of confusion for me, and forgive me because I'm a little slow in the uptake sometimes, is, but why is it that if boat rentals were part of water-oriented businesses previously, that they wouldn't have to be conditionally zoned when they show up in a marina? I guess that's puzzled me. I don't know if I've heard an answer to that.
With the current ordinance,
Well, as it used to be with the,
Okay.
Yes, the current ordinance as it is now.
so if a it was considered under the historical definition of if you have we're already approved as a commercial marina, and then you could have charters in there. You could have water-oriented uses in that marina. So they could come and go. So part of water-oriented uses were boat rentals. So if you were not in a commercial marina and you wanted to have a water-oriented use, then yes, you would have to come in and get a special use permit. But if you were already operating any of those elements that were water-oriented uses in a commercial marina, then staff said, okay, you can operate scenic tours, charters, and we had them, multiple charters in several marinas
Okay.
in town.
But the confusing part for me is that water-oriented businesses and marinas were both conditional zoning in the MB1, right?
Correct.
Okay, but they're defined as separate things, so that, boat rental as a water-oriented business is not a marina, a commercial marina, and neither is a commercial marina water-oriented business, boat rental.
So a lot of that was like charter. So if a charter wanted to establish in a commercial marina, the town said, okay, yes, you can operate. And that interpretation was before I got here. So then once staff makes an interpretation, you can't go back on that or treat somebody differently. So it has to stand unless there's an ordinance change or if they appeal that interpretation and Board of Adjustment overrules it.
Okay,
So that was an historic interpretation. how the town treated charters.
So
So if you wanted a fishing charter, then you could operate in a commercial marina without having to go through a conditional zoning if the marina already went through that.
Okay, so essentially, staff at the time, as it were, made the determination that that was a valid interpretation of the ordinance at the time.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that with more intensified use as boat rentals, that may have in the scope, but that was a water-oriented use, so it was using the same interpretation that existed for that charter business. So that's why it was allowed.
But they did at the time exist as two separate definitions.
Water-oriented uses and commercial marinas, yes.
Right, okay. Is it water-oriented uses or water-oriented businesses?
Water-oriented businesses,
Okay.
yes, that's how it's classified. But one thing about it is, water-oriented businesses doesn't have a parking requirement. So if you approve a water-oriented business, what's their parking ratio?
Mm-hmm,
And that's one of the things we were trying to clean up with this amendment.
okay. Thank you.
Any other non-agenda items? We are adjourned. Oh, go ahead.
Just a reminder, tonight's fireworks, 9 o'clock.
We are adjourned. Thank you, staff. Thank you, folks.
So Lynn, punctuation, Kanto, you're going to take care of